Okay, let's unpack something I hear about all the time from English learners, maybe you too.
Uh-huh.
You're listening to someone speak English, watching a movie, maybe talking to a friend, and you hit that moment of frustration. You know the words, you can see them written down perfectly in your head.
Yeah.
But catching what's actually being said, it feels, well, impossible sometimes.
It doesn't even sound like words, does it? It can sound more like one long, continuous rush of sound, almost.
Exactly.
Like a linguistic blur with no clear starts or stops,
Hmm.
like trying to drink from a fire hose. It's overwhelming.
Totally. If that feeling resonates, if you've ever thought, why does native speech sound so incredibly fast?
Yeah.
Please know this. You are absolutely 100% not alone.
Oh, definitely not.
This is probably the most common challenge for people learning to understand spoken English at, natural speed.
And here's the critical insight right at the start, I think. It's not usually because your vocabulary isn't big enough or your grammar isn't strong.
Right. That's not usually the core issue here.
No, it's because when native speakers talk naturally, especially kind of quickly, the sounds of words change dramatically. They sound very different from how they look on a page or how they might be pronounced slowly and carefully, like in a lesson.
Right. That's the crux of it. We link words together. We reduce or even drop certain sounds.
Uh,
And the rhythm is totally different from that sort of isolated word style you often get in textbooks or language apps sometimes.
yeah, and the mismatch happens because a lot of learning focuses, understandably, on the visible aspects of English, the reading, writing, grammar rules.
Which are essential, of course.
Absolutely
Yeah.
essential. But it doesn't always train your ear for the messy, fluid reality of natural spoken English.
Messy is a good word for it.
So when your brain expects one thing based on the written word and hears something quite different, especially at speed, it just sounds fast and confusing, overwhelming.
But here's the truly empowering part, and something the material we're diving into makes crystal clear. You absolutely can train your ear for this.
Yes.
Recognizing these natural patterns is a skill, and it's totally learnable.
And that's really our mission today. We've taken a deep dive into sources that explain this very challenge, and they lay out some incredibly powerful strategies.
Yeah, really practical stuff.
Exactly. These aren't just theoretical ideas. They're practical ways to help you start identifying those sneaky patterns, catch words even when they're linked or reduced, and ultimately just feel more confident when you're listening.
So over the next little while, we're going to break down a few key things. First, why native speakers connect words. It's not random.
No, there's a reason.
Second, we'll look at those super common reductions and contractions that change pronunciation so much.
The wanna, gonna, gotta type things.
Exactly those. Third, a crucial realization: you don't need to hear every single word, which is a relief.
Huge relief, yeah. Focus on what matters.
And finally, a really effective hands-on technique to actively train your ear for speed, something you can actually do.
Honestly, once you start noticing these common changes, it's like the volume gets turned down on the chaos a bit.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
English stops sounding like that overwhelming fast blur. It starts to feel slower, clearer, and much more like actual language you can understand.
Okay, I'm excited. Let's just jump right into the first big pattern then. What's the foundational idea here? The thing that changes everything from the written page to spoken reality.
Okay, the most fundamental thing is this. Natural spoken English is not a sequence of individual words, each pronounced separately with neat little pauses in between.
Right, not like reading a list.
Not at all. It's a continuous flow of sound. Words connect to each other. They link up.
So you're saying that neat separation we see in writing, those spaces between words, forget it when you're listening to natural speak.
Pretty much. Think of typing. You hit the space bar between words, right?
Yeah.
Your brain sees those spaces in writing. But when we speak, we don't hit a sound space button. Our mouths and tongues, they move as efficiently as possible from the end of one word to the beginning of the next.
Ah, efficiency. That makes sense.
Yeah, it creates these linkages where the final sound of one word affects or even merges with the initial sound of the next word.
Like trying to be smooth and not waste breath or movement.
Exactly. It smooths things out, makes speech faster and less effortful for the speaker. But,
For the listener.
yeah, for the listener who is expecting those neat divisions based on written English, it can be incredibly disorienting.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably the #1 reason why the English you read looks so different from the English you hear spoken naturally.
Give us an example straight from the material we looked at. What's a really common phrase that totally transforms?
Okay, a classic one. A really simple question. What do you want to do?
Okay. 5 words. What do you want to do? Looks straightforward.
Right. But how often do you hear a native speaker actually say, what do you want to do? Like that, all separated.
Almost never in a normal conversation.
Exactly. Almost never. What you'll hear incredibly commonly is something like, what do you want to do?
Wow, okay. What do you want to do? That's huge difference. Let's break that down. What do you become?
When have you been?
And wants to becomes.
Want us.
So what do you want to do? How does that even happen? It seems like sounds are changing and disappearing all over the place.
Well, let's look at what do you. The ton sound at the end of what often changes, especially in American English, to more of a day sound when it's between vowels or vowel-like sounds.
Okay.
So what do might sound more like wada. Then said a ton at the end of do connects with the Y sound at the beginning of you.
Right. Dead plus you.
And that dead plus yes sound very often makes a J sound, like in judge or juice.
Ah, so dead plus you.
Yeah, it's a common phonetic process called palatalization. So do you sounds like Jew or Jew. Put it together, would you? Or even faster, woulda. The vowels often reduce too, becoming weaker hus sounds.
Okay, that's complex, but makes sense when you break it down like that. It's all about sounds influencing each other.
Exactly. And want to, becoming wanna. That final to sound in want often gets dropped entirely, especially before another consonant sound like the T in to.
So the T just vanishes.
Often, yeah. And the word to itself usually reduces in unstressed positions. Instead of a clear to sound, it becomes that weak sound again, or sometimes even just try. So wanna or wanna.
Wanna. Got it. So it's not just about speaking fast, it's about the actual physical production of the sound changing when words are squished together.
Precisely. And this isn't just one isolated example. This linking, merging, changing, reducing happens everywhere, all the time. The material gives us some other really common pairings.
Okay, what else?
Take did you, like in the question, did you eat?
Right.
Spoken quickly, it's almost always going to sound like did you eat?
Did you eat? Okay, so that's the same bluff plus you becoming J thing again.
Exactly the same pattern. The D at the end of did and the Y sound at the beginning of you fused together. Did ya? It's a very, very standard connection in spoken English.
Okay, I can definitely hear that now. What about something like, I don't know. That's got to be said a million times a day.
Oh, that's a perfect example of both reduction and linking. We'll talk more specifically about reductions in a sec, but I don't know is a prime instance of sounds disappearing.
How so?
Well, you rarely hear the final T of don't pronounced clearly. It often gets dropped, especially before a consonant like the N in no.
Right, like the T in want to.
Similar idea. And the vowel sound in don't, the O sound often weakens, becoming less distinct. So the whole phrase commonly comes out as something like, I don't know.
I don't know, the T is gone, the vowel is different.
And don't and no link seamlessly to no. It feels like one unit.
So if you're listening carefully for I don't know, with clear sounds and breaks,
You'll likely miss it entirely because what you actually hear is, I don't know. Your brain is trying to match the incoming sound to the pattern of the written words, and it's just not matching up quickly enough.
that makes total sense.
Another great example from the source material is, I am going to go.
Okay.
Again, firstly, we almost always use the contraction I'm, right? So I'm going to go.
Standard contraction.
But then going to undergoes this massive transformation in casual speech. It becomes gonna.
Right, gonna. We hear that all the time.
All the time. So the full phrase becomes, I'm gonna go. It feels like one smooth, easy to say unit for a native speaker, but it's a long way from the fully written out, I am gonna go.
I'm gonna go versus I am gonna go.
Yeah, huge difference in sound and rhythm.
This is fascinating and also makes total sense why it's so hard for learners.
Absolutely.
You're listening for a specific sequence of distinct sounds based on reading, and you're getting something completely different that's been smoothed out, merged, reduced.
Exactly. And the critical takeaway here, the really important thing to grasp, is that connected speech is not an error. It's not lazy speaking.
Right. It's just how natural English works.
It's a fundamental characteristic of natural fluent English. When your ear starts to recognize these common patterns, how certain sounds link or change, how common phrases compress, then that fast speech starts to resolve into understandable chunks.
So it moves from being that overwhelming waterfall of sound
To something with discernible patterns you can actually latch onto. You start hearing the units like wadaya or gonna or didya as single items almost.
That definitely feels less overwhelming just thinking about it as patterns rather than just random speed. And that flows perfectly into the second key strategy from our sources. Actively learning those common reductions and contractions.
Absolutely. Connected speech is about how words flow together. Reductions and contractions are often about the sounds within those words, changing, weakening, or disappearing entirely, or words being formally combined into shorter forms like I am to I'm. This is the other huge piece of the puzzle that makes spoken English diverge so much from the written page and makes it feel fast to learners.
Okay, let's drill down into some more of these specific reductions that our source material points out. You mentioned wanna, gonna, gotta earlier, and they are just everywhere, aren't they?
They really are kind of the big three of common reductions in informal speech.
Yeah.
Super frequent.
So want to becomes wanna, like in.
I want to go home. Or do you want to get coffee?
Okay. And going to becomes gonna, as in...
You's gonna be late. Or what are you gonna do?
Right. And got to, meaning have to, reduces to gotta.
Yep. Like, I gotta finish this report. Or you gotta see this movie.
And these aren't just like slang used by teenagers, right? These are really widespread in formal contexts.
Oh, totally widespread. Across different accents, different age groups. In casual conversation, they're very standard features of natural, everyday spoken English. If you don't recognize wanna, gonna, and gotta, you'll honestly miss the huge amount of what's being said in conversations.
Yeah, you constantly be trying to figure out what those sounds are.
Exactly. But as the material highlights, there are tons more beyond just those three big ones. We already touched on, becoming.
Right, dropping the T, weakening the vowel.
That pattern of dropping the T and reducing the vowel is incredibly common. Think about let me.
Okay, let me, like offering help.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of carefully saying, let me help you, you'll constantly hear something much more like, let me help you.
Let me help you. Okay, so what's happening there?
Let me condense this. The T in let
Yeah.
often gets dropped or becomes very soft, blending into the M, and the vowel in me can weaken let me.
Let me.
And notice, too, how you at the end of a phrase like that often reduce the T. Ya.
Ah, right. Let me help ya, not let me help you.
Very common. So that's three words, let me help you, all undergoing some kind of reduction or linking to become let me help you. Much faster, much smoother.
Let me help ya. Okay, yes, I can totally hear that now that you pointed out. It's so much quicker than pronouncing each word distinctly.
Definitely. And similarly, asking for something, like give me,
Gimme becomes...
almost always reduces to gimme.
Gimme!
Yeah, give me that book. Or can you give me a hand? Again, the vowel in give might weaken slightly, and the V sound often disappears or merges right into the M sound. Gimme.
Gimme. Wow. Okay, so wanna, gonna, gotta, don't let me, gimme. There are quite a few of these really common ones.
There are many more. Like kind of becomes kinda, sort of becomes sorta, have to becomes hafta. The list goes on.
This is why if you're listening word by word, expecting the full pronunciation, you just get lost.
Totally.
Your brain is waiting for the clear sounds of let me, and instead it hears this quick sound lemmy, and it just doesn't compute fast enough to keep up with the conversation.
Exactly. The mental processing speed is key here. If you expect the full, careful pronunciation of every single word, but the speaker is using these natural reductions and connections, there's a processing delay.
Right. Your brain's playing catch-up.
It's trying to piece together sounds that don't match the expected shape of the words you learn from reading. But by learning these common reduced forms actively...
You shortcut the process.
Exactly. Your brain can make that match instantly. When you hear gimme, your brain is trained to recognize it as give me without hesitation, without that delay. Listening becomes much smoother.
So the actionable step here, based on the source material we looked at, is to deliberately become aware of these. Don't just read English, listen to it actively.
Yeah, conscious listening is the start.
Pay attention in movies, podcasts, YouTube videos, real conversations if you can. Try to spot these patterns. They are absolutely everywhere once you start listening for them.
And the more you hear wanna, gonna, gotta, dunno, let me, gimme, and all the others, and consciously recognize them as their full forms, the more automatic that recognition becomes.
It trains your ear.
It trains your ear to accept these sounds as normal, valid forms of the words.
Okay, so we've talked about words connecting and words reducing. Now let's shift gears slightly to a concept that actually takes some pressure off the listener.
Oh, yes. This is a good one.
The idea that you don't actually need to catch every single word.
This is a huge relief for many learners, I find. And it's absolutely true. It's also exactly how native speakers operate, often without even thinking about it.
How does that work?
Well, in English, like in many languages, meaning is carried primarily by certain words in a sentence, not equally by all of them. Some words do more heavy lifting information-wise.
You mean like the important words versus the less important ones, the grammatical fluff?
Kind of, yeah.
Sure.
Native speakers instinctively stress the words that carry the main information. These are usually the nouns, the main verb, the action words, the key adjectives describing words, and adverbs, how, when, where.
The content words.
Exactly. They're often called content words because they carry the main content or meaning. The smaller words, like articles, a, an, or, prepositions, in, on, at, for conjunctions, and, but, or, and auxiliary verbs, is, are, do, can, have, when they're just helping form a tense or question. These are often unstressed.
The function words.
Right, the function words. They provide the grammatical structure, but less of the core meaning. And crucially, this is often where you find those reductions and connections happening that we just talked about.
Okay, so the function words are often the ones that get squished, reduced, and blurred together.
Very often, yes.
While the content words, the important ones, tend to stand out more because they're stressed.
Exactly. The stress content words are like the anchors of the sentence.
Yeah.
They're usually spoken a bit louder, maybe held slightly longer, sometimes with a higher pitch. They pop out,
Okay.
and they deliver the core message. So even if the unstressed function words are reduced, linked, or maybe even missed entirely by the listener.
You can still get the main idea.
Often, yes. Your brain can piece together the meaning from those stressed anchors.
The material gives that great example. Let's try it. If you listen to this sentence, notice which words seem to pop out, which ones get the emphasis. I was thinking about calling you yesterday.
Can you hear it? Thinking, calling, yesterday. Those words really stand out.
Yeah, they definitely do. They sound louder, clearer. I was about you are much less prominent, much quicker, softer.
Right. So even if you, as the listener, only clearly heard thinking, calling, yesterday, maybe the other words were a bit blurry.
You'd still understand the main point.
Exactly. You get the core idea. The speaker was contemplating contacting someone the day before. You didn't need to perfectly decode was or about or even you to grasp that fundamental message.
That's actually really encouraging. Let's try the second example from the source to reinforce this. Listen for the emphasized words here. She's probably going to be late for the meeting.
Okay, listen again. She's probably going to be late for the meeting.
Okay, I'm hearing probably. Late, meeting. Those three really jump out.
Right. She's gonna be for that. They're all much less emphasized. They're quicker, quieter.
And notice gonna is in there, one of those reductions we talked about.
Good catch. Exactly. It's unstressed and reduced. But the crucial information, probably late meeting, is carried by those stressed content words.
So you understand the main point. She's likely not arriving on time for the appointment.
Precisely. Even if the grammatical bits in between are a bit fuzzy.
This is huge because it means your listening goal can shift, can't it? It's not about desperately trying to catch 100% of the words, which feels impossible.
Right.
It's more about identifying maybe the key 30–40% of the words, the stressed ones that carry the main meaning.
And that feels like a much more achievable goal, doesn't it?
Definitely. Less pressure.
And think about it. You already do this in your native language without even realizing it. You filter for the key information naturally.
Yeah, that's true. I don't consciously process every single the or is.
Exactly. So the skill here is consciously applying that same natural filtering strategy to English listening. Train yourself to listen for the stress, listen for the words that the speaker seems to emphasize with volume, pitch, or length. Those are the words carrying the weight of the message.
Okay, so combine recognizing connected speech and reductions with the skill of listening for stressed words. And you already have a much clearer picture of how natural English actually works and how to approach listening.
And that leads us perfectly to the most practical, action-oriented strategy from the material we reviewed. This is one that combines all of these elements and actively trains your ear and your mouth.
Yes. This is the technique called shadowing. I've heard about this. It sounds intense but effective.
It is. It's specifically designed to help you internalize the rhythm, the intonation, the sound patterns of natural fast English.
So what exactly is shadowing? How does it work?
Shadowing is beautifully simple in concept, really. You listen to a native speaker talking, and you try to speak the exact same thing they're saying, either at the exact same time or just a fraction of a second behind them. Like, You're their echo or their shadow.
Speaking at the same time, that sounds really difficult, trying to keep up.
It can definitely feel that way at first, absolutely. But the reason it's so incredibly effective, as the source material explains, is because it forces your brain to process English at its natural speed and rhythm.
Ah, it forces the processing speed.
Yes. You're not just passively hearing the sounds anymore, you are actively trying to reproduce them in real time. You're mimicking the sounds, the connections, the reductions, the stress patterns, everything all at once.
So it's active listening combined with active speaking.
Exactly. And it builds this powerful physical connection between what your ear hears and how your mouth produces the sound. It trains your brain to actually make sense of that rapid stream of connected sound because you're trying to generate it yourself.
Okay, that makes sense why it would be powerful. How do you actually do it? Give us the step-by-step guide from the source. Like if someone wants to try this today.
Right. It's pretty straightforward. Step 1. Find a short piece of audio. The material recommends starting with just 1 or 2 minutes. Don't try an hour-long lecture first time.
Okay, short. 1 to 2 minutes. And what kind of audio?
Real natural spoken English, not someone reading slowly and carefully from a script designed for learners.
Right. Authentic stuff.
Yeah. Maybe a clip from a casual interview, a segment from a YouTube video where someone's just talking naturally, maybe a scene from a TV show or movie, or even a small part of a podcast like this one.
Okay, short clip of natural speech. Got it. What's step 2?
Step 2, listen to that clip once, all the way through, without looking at any subtitles or transcript if you happen to have them.
No reading first.
No, just listen for the general meaning. Don't stress about catching every single word. Just try to understand the main idea, the gist of what's being said.
Just understand the overall topic first.
That's
Okay.
step 3. Now play the clip again. This time, as you listen, speak along with the speaker. Try to start speaking almost immediately after them, or even right along with them if you can manage it.
Okay, listen and speak along.
And try your absolute best to match their rhythm, their speed, and their pronunciation, their intonation, the ups and downs of their voice. Don't stop if you miss a word or stumble. Just keep going, trying to stay right with them like you're glued to their voice.
Okay, listen and speak at the same time, matching everything. That still feels like the really challenging part.
It is at first. But here's the crucial 4th step, the mindset that makes shadowing really work, according to the sources. Don't focus on saying each word perfectly and distinctly, like you're reading.
Okay. What should you focus on?
Focus on copying the sound. Pay close attention to how the speaker connects words together. Listen for how sounds change or disappear in those reductions we talked about. Notice where they put the stress, the emphasis. You are trying to reproduce the overall sound, the melody and flow of their speech, not just the individual dictionary words.
So it's about imitating the music of fluent English, not just saying the words you think you hear separated out.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. You're training your mouth and your ear together to recognize and produce those natural patterns. It feels awkward initially, maybe really difficult, but the sources emphasize that with practice, it does become easier.
Practice makes perfect. Or at least better.
Well, maybe not perfect, but definitely better. And the material emphasizes consistency over long duration. Doing short, regular shadowing sessions, maybe just 5–10 minutes a day, is often much more effective than trying to do one marathon hour-long session once a week.
Little and often. Makes sense. This sounds incredibly practical. Can we actually try a bit right now using those examples from earlier?
Yeah, great idea.
I think hearing the natural speed, getting the breakdown again, and then giving you, the listener, a moment to actually try shadowing it could be really powerful.
Okay, let's do it. Let's take our first example, that casual conversation starter. Remember, slowly and carefully, it sounds like. Hey, what are you doing this weekend?
Okay. And the natural speed version we discussed, the one you'd likely actually hear, was, hey, what are you doing this weekend?
Right. And the breakdown again, what are you? Connected and reduced to sound like wadaya. And doing often loses that final G sound, becoming doing.
Okay, listener, get ready. We're going to say the natural speed version again. Listen carefully to the sound, the rhythm, how the words link. Then we'll pause for just a few seconds for you to try shadowing it out loud. Try to copy that sound and speed. Ready.
Here's the natural speed version again. Hey, what are you doing this weekend?
Your turn. Try to shadow it.
Short pause. All right. How did that feel? A little challenging, maybe.
Probably. That's completely normal, especially the first few times. The goal isn't perfection, it's just to try and keep up, copying the overall sound. Let's do another one.
Okay, our second example, asking for help. Slow version. Can you help me with this?
Natural speed, very common way to say it. Can you help me with this?
Right. And the breakdown, can you, often reduces to can ya and help me, links together, sometimes sounding almost like help me. The P sound might be very light or blend right into the M.
Okay, listen to the natural speed version again, focusing on that flow and those little reductions. Then get ready to practice shadowing it.
Natural speed. Can you help me with this?
Your turn, Shadow.
Short pause. Yeah. Okay, good try. Getting the feel for it. It's about training your mouth and ear to work together at speed. One more example before we do that final quick drill.
Okay.
The phrase expressing surprise. Slow version. I didn't know that.
Natural speed, super common reduction. I don't know that.
Yeah. Breakdown.
Mm.
Did often reduces significantly, sometimes just sounded like done or
Yeah.
similar. And know that links together. The W in no is silent, of course, and the in that might soften, making it sound like know that or not that.
Okay. Listen for that big reduction and the linking in the natural version, then try to shadow it.
Natural speed. I don't know.
Your turn to shadow.
Short pause. Fantastic effort. Even just trying for a few seconds helps build that connection. Now let's do that final quick drill mentioned in the source material. We'll give you the sentence at natural speed, remind you the breakdown quickly, and then immediate practice time.
Okay, ready.
Here it is, natural speed. What are you going to do later?
Breakdown reminder. What are you becomes would-ya. Going to becomes gonna.
Okay, listen and immediately try to shadow it right after us. As quickly as you can. Ready? What are you going to do later?
Shadow it now.
Short pause. Awesome. That's what shadowing feels like. It's active, it's fast, and it really forces you to engage with English as it's actually spoken at its real speed.
And as the source material constantly reinforces, consistent practice with techniques like this is absolutely key. It's how your brain starts to automatically recognize those patterns we've been talking about all this time, the connections, the reductions, the stress patterns, without you having to consciously think about every single one.
Yeah, this entire deep dive has really hammered home that the perception of fast English isn't just about the speaker literally talking at lightning speed, although sometimes they do.
Right.
It's often more about the listener's lack of familiarity with the sound patterns of natural connected speech.
Yeah, native speakers aren't necessarily talking faster in terms of like syllables per second all the time,
Sometimes, but not always.
but the way they connect and reduce sounds makes it sound much faster and more blurred if you're not tuned into it.
Exactly. And we've walked through the core reasons why this happens. Words connecting smoothly, sounds reducing or disappearing for efficiency, and the way meaning is carried by focusing only on the key stressed words.
Uh-huh.
And then eventually, the power of active practice methods like shadowing to actually train your brain and ears for this reality. Right. The promise here, which is really supported by the insights from our sources, is tangible. It's real. Consistently working on recognizing these sound changes and practicing listening and speaking at natural speed will make English sound significantly slower to your ears over time.
That feeling of being overwhelmed starts to fade.
It does. You won't feel like you're constantly fighting the language, trying to decode every little sound. You'll start flowing with it more naturally.
And here's that truly transformative thought from the material to kind of leave you with, to mull over.
Yeah, this is powerful. The more you practice recognizing these patterns and training your ear, the slower English will start to sound. Your brain will adapt.
Your brain will adapt. It's incredibly powerful and adaptable, designed to learn patterns. When you deliberately expose it to natural spoken English through movies, music, conversations, and especially through active techniques like shadowing, you're literally teaching it to anticipate and decode those sounds automatically.
Yeah, that initial feeling you might have now, that feeling of just hearing one long sound with no breaks.
It doesn't just feel less intimidating over time.
No, it actually starts to segment itself in your mind. Your brain begins to hear the familiar chunks, the wanna, the gonna, the dija, and it starts to pick out those stressed content words more easily.
Because you've trained it to recognize the patterns. It's not just about knowing the grammar rules anymore. It's about fundamentally retraining your entire auditory processing system for English as it's actually spoken by millions of people every day.
So the final word really is keep listening actively. Keep practicing these techniques, especially shadowing. Be patient with yourself. And watch as those impossibly fast conversations gradually, steadily resolve into clear, understandable English. Your trained ear will definitely thank you.